Hey, Mr. Regal, how are you, sir?
Oh, how are you?
Doing excellent. I just got done telling Mark a couple of minutes ago. I don't request for many people, but you were one of the only people I've been requesting for a long time now as a longtime fan, so I appreciate you taking the time today.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, and the timing is perfect with TakeOver coming up this week. Stand and Deliver. It's one of those WrestleMania weekend shows, and these takeovers are always special. Obviously, every installment is something special to offer. But this show specifically, it's a stacked show, the first ever two-night takeover. These WrestleMania weekend takeovers. What are your thoughts on them? Because specifically, these always stand out as some of the more special installments we see every year.
Well, I can just go back to it wasn't even really a takeover, was it? The first one we did in San Jose, and the magic that night was, it's hard to put into words, really. It was just incredible, and we knew that there was something special going on. And it's very easy to overlook the fact that what we're into now, 34 or whatever this is going to be. That we've done 30 plus incredible shows, and I think a lot of people, because it just becomes a number after a while. But it's very hard to think of any part of our industry that's ever done so many shows in a row that would be considered, great to excellent.
Yeah.
And so all these shows are, every time, unfortunately, getting old is one of the things you hear, that time passes by so quick, and it's just like we go from the next one to the next one, and they're so. We look forward to them so much, but the only unfortunate thing for me is that when they're ended, because they're always so good and so special, and it's that the talent are just going to go out and give it everything they've got. And so the WrestleMania weekend in itself is obviously WWE's biggest weekend.
Mm-hmm.
So anything going into that, the NXT talent have got something to prove, and they're going in there with the idea that we're going to have that's anybody's discussion other than mine, because I'm part of NXT, but we're going to try and have the best show that we can possibly have, and make everybody else, and they do, like, we have to, don't think all the main roster talent aren't watching and going, we've got to top this,
Mm-hmm.
or we've got to try and do better than this, because and that's been the case for the last several years. So, ever since we started doing the takeovers at WrestleMania. So, yeah, it's a very, very special time, and it's a lot of pressure as well. It's a lot of pressure for everybody involved, especially the talent, which is why we put the best talent out there, because this is a weekend or a week, sorry, that you just can't sort of let slip by. You've got to be 100% on your game, and you've got to be able to go, and because you've got to prove something.
Yeah. And you bring up a great point, too. I feel like these takeovers have consistently heightened the quality of Mania itself. Because, like you said, they have to attempt to top what TakeOver is putting out either the night before or 2 nights before. In this case, it's a few nights before,
Yes.
with it taking place on Wednesday and Thursday. And it always makes WrestleMania better, so there's always that aspect of it as well. With this card
Yes.
specifically, it's such a stacked show. I mean, obviously, again, we have 2 nights of it. So we got Shirai Gonzalez Women's Championship, Balor Cross NXT title. Even Walter's making a rare appearance. He's coming back for this weekend, facing Tommaso Ciampa for the NXT UK Championship. Obviously, being the general manager of the show, a top executive in NXT, it's hard to be, biased towards one match or whatever. But is there any one match that you're specifically looking forward to, or that you think has the best chance of stealing the show?
Ooh, now, see, this is where I don't like to get involved.
Yeah.
This is not a cop-out in any way, because if I say something, it puts so much extra pressure on the actual competitors.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'll leave that one to somebody else to say, if you don't mind. And that's the reason, because the thing is, I know what it's like to have to do these things, and I know how much pressure it is just to be able to perform, full stop. When you've got to go into an expectation that is beyond anything that you've ever had to go to before, it just puts too much pressure on the talent. But there's a reason that the main events are the main events. Let me put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll go with that. That's about the best I'm going to give you, because it's just not fair to put that kind of pressure on people.
Yeah.
It's there's more so than ever, because it's this week. more so than ever, there's more eyes on the talent. Yeah. And so from every angle, and that's not just fan-based wise or media-based wise, that's from people in Raw and SmackDown as well who have the decision-making. There's going to be more eyes on these talent to really stand out, because they're going to hear about it or see, well, they're going to see it, and then they're going to hear who's made the most connection and whatever else with the statistics. And then this can be a game, and it's one of those weekends that's a game changer for certain people, that where they get to move on to a bigger stage, and so that adds that extra pressure to everybody, right? I know this is a long answer, but it's a fact that it's just so much pressure on the talent, and so I'll just say that the main events are the main events. That's the reason.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And another thing, too, is that you don't want to single out just one match. I mean, I figured you would say that, but you don't want to single out one match, because then it kind of says, so if you were to say Balor and Cross, then you have Shirai and Gonzalez saying, well, what about our match? Why isn't he looking forward to our match? You know what I'm saying? Because every match has the kind of the potential to be great, so I kind of see what you're saying.
That's the whole thing, that there's nothing on, nobody on any of these cards that I don't expect to have incredible matches.
Yeah.
They wouldn't be on the cards otherwise. We wouldn't put them on, especially on this week, more so than ever. So it's just more, everybody's going to go out there with the intention of having all this pressure, but also having the best absolute match possible. There's no okay, there's times when I've known when I've been on a few WrestleManias, okay, I'm on first match, I have to set the tone for the night, because if the first match is bad, that's it. You can lose the next few matches, and so it's such a huge amount of pressure, and I can feel it now talking about it. And this is 20 something years ago. My stomach's turning over thinking about those having to walk through that, that curtain, and so I know what the talent goes through, and so I really don't. It's like people ask me who's the next big thing in NXT. I'm not going to tell you that who I think, because it's just not fair to put that pressure on them, because things can happen along the way as well, right? It's the ups and downs that come with this job.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about pressure and how, kicking off the show and the energy that what's the follow from that point forward. I think a lot of people forget what is arguably the greatest WrestleMania of all time. You kicked off the show with Chris Jericho for the Intercontinental Championship. I mean, that was the first match on what was one of the greatest WrestleManias of all time. So I think you know better than anyone kind of in that respect. But back to TakeOver itself, I mean, there's so many matches like I was talking about. Cole and O'Reilly specifically, unsanctioned match. I'll be talking to O'Reilly a little bit later today. But as someone who's been involved, obviously, in yourself with NXT for such a long time now, since the beginning, seeing the evolution. Yeah. I mean, even going back, I was going to ask you a little bit later, but we're talking about the competition show, style days with the keg carrying contest and stuff like that. So you've been a part of this since day one. But in the last couple of years specifically, Cole and O'Reilly unsanctioned match, they've been a part of NXT now for almost 4 years, and you don't really see that more often than not. Usually people move on to Raw, SmackDown, whatever. They've been here. They've been a big part of the brand. This is a huge match, one of the biggest matches, I think it's safe to say, in TakeOver NXT history. What are your thoughts been on the evolution of these two performers specifically in Cole and O'Reilly, and this feud that they've built up over the last couple of months? Because that Prime Takeover, or Prime Target rather, video was absolutely tremendous.
This is a very strange one for me, because I've known Adam and Kyle for quite a long time now. Whatever it is, and this leads back to Daniel Bryan and to Brian Kendrick. From 20 years ago, the younger generation of wrestlers who really sort of lean towards the wrestling side of this seem to look me up, even before I was doing the job that I'm doing now. We crossed paths in some form or another, because they realised that I would try to help them in any way I can, because I wouldn't be here without people helping me, and that's the way I've always given them. So I've known them both since they were very young, and seen some of those pictures when it's like you forget all of a sudden, and it puts you back in that place of, I remember first meeting them, and I remember them talking to them and just asking me if I had any advice, and saying, well, you're far better off. You're far both of them. I remember telling you, how long you been doing this? I remember having this conversation with them. How long you been doing this? A couple of years, 2-3 years or whatever. Well, you're far better at it than I was after 2 or 3 years, and just starting a conversation like that, and to watch how this has gone, and to watch how they came into NXT right at the right time and made such an impact and have such an incredible run. I mean, who gets a 4-year run just as a unit that you just don't, as just one standout unit? I can't think of anybody who's done that. I mean, you maybe be able to tell me better than I can remember. Whether it be the Horseman, whether it be DX, whether it be... It doesn't matter who it is.
Yeah.
To have a 4-year run or 3.5, whatever it is, year run as a unit is an incredible feat without, like, major changes going on. And for them to get to this point and to get to this match is... It's sad that it's turned out between the two of them the way it has. But it's also sad to see the end of the Undisputed Era. But knowing all that, and knowing them, and knowing how competitive they are, and knowing how good they are, that also makes me want to sit and watch this match. I am like on edge already thinking about how good this match is going to be. Yeah. Unfortunately, it's also going to be brutal, and that's... without, there's no way that it cannot be with what's happened in the build up to this. So I am very much looking forward to it, let's put it that way. But also there's a part of my insides that fell over, that this is the end of a great there'll be days when we'll look back at this and they'll be making documentaries to put on the network about Undisputed Era, and this is probably the final nail in the bottom of it. And it's that part of it is sad.
Yeah, I mean, it's bittersweet. Like you said, we get the breakup of one of the greatest factions, easily the greatest faction in NXT history, but just one of the better factions overall in WWE. Like you said, kind of a seamless run for 4 years there. But as a fan, we're also excited to see the unsanctioned part of it, too, in the match itself, which is bound to be, a killer match this week,
Absolutely.
And,
absolutely.
And talking about NXT... Or, sorry, go ahead.
No, absolutely. We know the talent that both of them have, right? And Kyle's really... I've always known how good Kyle is. I think everybody's always known how good, but there's knowing or thinking, and actually seeing it. And Kyle we've seen that from Adam time and time again in these singles matches, but in the last few months, we've seen that in Kyle. Yeah, I say few months to me now, it can be a year, and it goes so quick because it's just the way things go. But we've seen Kyle has shone and shone as brightly as he could ever, and show everybody that there's no questioning when there's talk about who's the best and who's... Kyle O'Reilly can stand up there with anyone ever in this entire industry because he's so good. So it's just something that I'm really, really looking forward to.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. I mean, going back to NXT just in general, you have literally been a part of it since day one, since those competition-style show days, which I think a lot of people forget. You were on commentary for a while.
I tried to.
So you remember Skip Sheffield as your rookie. I mean, it was quite the time back in 2010. I mean, it's funny. I think a lot of people forget because we're headed to Tuesdays this upcoming week, and a week from now. It was on Tuesdays originally on Sci-Fi 10 years ago, and the show with what it was at that time got booted to the website. I mean, that's just what it was. It was supposed to be something different. It was what it was supposed to be. Whatever. Kind of had to be rebuilt back up, and you've been a big part of that, Mr. Regal, as both an authority figure. You're the longest running authority figure, I think, in WWE history, on air from 2014 to currently. That's not even counting your Raw stuff either, so that's pretty impressive in and of itself. But just in general, what's been your thoughts on the evolution of NXT, not just at Full Sail, but again, dating back to that competition style stuff and your involvement with that?
Well, it was not a stroke of luck. It was something happened that I was a part of that I wasn't supposed to be a part of the first one. And I got a call on Friday night, and when it started on the Tuesday, I believe, the few days later, somebody who should have been on it as a mentor can't do it. And so can you? So yes, and then I was involved in it. And to be honest, because NXT became something else, I was a part of that, and then I sort of became the announcer on it. And there's, I could spend a lot of time talking about different things and that, but it evolved anyway. It evolved from being a show that gave a lot of people a lot of breaks. Let's not ever take that away. You can go back and say that was a show that was whatever it was, however you want to remember it, but it gave a lot of people a lot of breaks. Daniel Bryan being one of them. And in a time when people like Daniel Bryan didn't really get the greatest of opportunity in the WWE. So let's not take anything away from NXT, the original NXT. It gave a lot of people a shot at being something. And the ones that did, there's a lot of people that come out of there in for the few years that it was on, or few seasons that it was on. Then it became something else. And I remember the conversation with Triple H at the very beginning of this, and he said, look, I think I was one of the first people to know, this is what we're going to do. What's your vision of this? Well, he gave me a vision of and that we want this to be an opportunity and a developmental place, but also we want to start putting on this show, and we'll see where it goes. And I remember thinking, if we can just get, I know this is going to be a developmental system, but if we can just get a few of these great wrestlers that I knew that were around, because of my connection with Daniel Bryan and with Brian Kendrick, and then 21 years ago, in fact, nearly exactly 21 years ago was the first time I met Samoa Joe and John Cena together at the same time. And other, that was in California, me doing a 3-day seminar for a company that was affiliated with WWE. So I've had these sort of connections with a lot of people that have ended up coming and being extras and whatever else. And so I've always known the landscape of let's just use a term that is independent wrestling, right? And people have come my way, and I've gone, okay, well, I can maybe get you booked over in Europe, or I can maybe get you here, or to give you can use my name as a reference. And so I knew that I've always followed that, and I always knew that there were these people about, these incredible talent that probably didn't fit the mold of WWE as it was at the time. So I said, if we can just get one or two of these people, and Finn Balor was on the list of that, but it took a few extra years because of his contract and whenever he was ready to actually come here. But I'd met him in 2006, and I was recommended by the company he was working for at the time, when the time's right, can you take him and look after him? Because I have a strong connection with that company for many years. And so, yes, and we kept in touch ever whenever we were in Dublin. If he wasn't in Japan, he'd come to the shows and he'd send me with the odd message. And so, and Finn Balor was one of these people. So if we can just get one or two of these people, we can, this is how I was thinking, we can probably mix it in with the talent that are learning. We can have a really good show. And so that was big. And it's gone so quick to where the next thing, we've already talked about it. The next thing, we're at WrestleMania doing, this is how it seems in my mind anyway, because the last 10 years have flown by. Me looking out at the crowd at San Jose, how have we got to this? It seemed like 5 minutes to me. How have we managed to go from that to this? And then the next thing, you're selling out Brooklyn, and me the whole time, and every single, and this is not an exaggeration, every single show that we've done in an arena, I am just awestruck, and how I stand there saying the same thing. How have we managed to get to this with a show that was, until a year and a half ago, on the network?
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody realizes how incredible of a thing that is, that, it's easy to forget after a while. We built selling out arenas off the network, and going on tours to Australia and to Britain and doing different things, and to Japan, and going, how is this all? And getting, again, just having these connections and bringing the right people at the right time. Adam Cole being one of these people that, when he first came, it was like, I was all for bringing him, and Triple H said, no, another couple of years. because he will not stop. Some people you have to take now, or they may quit, or they may, let's nurture. You have to. Everybody's completely different. But Adam Cole, there's a drive in him. He will stay doing this and go through everything it is, and just be better for it after a couple of years. And when the time was right, let's get Adam Cole, and that's why he could walk in straight off, in the door, no waiting around, and straight into a main event caliber spot. Mm-hmm. And that's how myself and Triple H sort of work together. The things sometimes I don't see, we complement each other very well on things. But that was a call on him in a couple of years. This lad's going to keep going out there, and keep an eye on him. And if he needs any help, just tell him to let you know. And this is how much we put into this. I used to say to these fellas, if you need anything, if I can help you out with a bit of, even in the case of some people, I'm not saying Adam, but certain people, when I know they were short on bookings, look, are you short on money or anything? Is there anything I can do for you? Is there any help I can give you? Just keep in touch with all these people. And all of a sudden, we're at this place where we're doing our own show. We're moving to Tuesdays. We're doing 8 o'clock on a Wednesday on the network, and then we got on TV, and now we're doing great again. And we've had a strange year, obviously, which has thrown everybody off, but everybody's figuring it out as best as we can. And we're at WrestleMania weekend, and hopefully the world's going to start sorting itself out, and we can get back out there and do what we do, which is just. And if you've ever been to an NXT live event, there is nothing like it. It is. I will put my stamp on the fact that you will have an incredible time. So it is. It's. I don't know where we even started with this, because I get so passionate about how much we've accomplished in such a short amount of time.
Yeah.
And really, the talent have all worked as hard as possible. We're just getting going. We've had a year. We got a year where this last year again. It'll be another time when they'll be making documentaries about it, how it affected everybody really, because we're all just sort of putting a brave face on it and getting out there and doing what we have to do as professionals. But there's going to be a time when we're going to look back and go, how did we get through that? Well, we got through it, and we're just ticking over. Not ticking over as far as what we're doing in the ring, but we're having to figure out how to do it in front of no fans, and now we're just going to get where we're going to a new night where we can concentrate on okay, we now this is a new phase. So I don't even know where this is going to, because we're going to go into this. I know we've always done really well on Tuesdays. I always know that we're going, but we're also a year smarter on how to deal with this situation that we're all living through, and we're doing very well with it, and we're starting to find a groove in it, and so it's a whole new chapter for me. As of this week is what it is. Next Tuesday is a whole new chapter. I'm starting to let's basically starting NXT again, and I know. With the talent that we've got, just waiting, ready to go. And then there's lots of developmental talent that are waiting to, that are, as soon as we can get back and sort of get out and do more, then things are going to start really cooking.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, this show speaks for itself. It's got WrestleMania worthy written all over it, and NXT standards. It's going to be absolutely incredible. As someone who's been to a few Manias myself, I'm bummed I can't go to Stand and Deliver. I was at the Orlando one a few years ago. I was at the New York one in Brooklyn, but it was the one where O'Reilly and Gargano had their match for the NXT Championship, which I think is still the greatest takeover of all time. And it's going to be great to have fans back in the building. Hopefully at some point in the not-too-distant future, specifically for a show like this where the crowd would go absolutely crazy for every single match on the show. And I can attest to what you said, having been to a few takeovers myself. I was there for that first Brooklyn one in August of 2015. Just one of the best shows I've ever been to in a decade plus as a fan. But Mr. Regal, we got to wind down here. I know you're a busy man. We got WrestleMania week upon us. I would be remiss. I got to tell you, I was telling Mark right before we got on the line here. My surname, when I use, to write articles for Bleacher Report, FanSided, stuff like that, is Matthews, and I got to give you credit for that. That was inspired by you. I know your real last name is Matthews. My first name is Graham, so my real actual last name is Mermina. It doesn't have as good of a ring to it, so I'm like, if I can come up with something like English based, I think Matthews would work. So
no, I would think the other way around, because your name sounds far more exotic than Matthews. So I would be looking the other way, but it's just another name to me. But I have a cousin called Graham Matthews, by the way.
Oh, that's funny. Oh, that's cool.
I grew up with. Yeah, he lived with us ever since from when he was young here. So.
Oh, that's cool. No, yeah, I throw GSM in there, which are my initials. I throw that in there to kind of make it a little bit different than just Graham Matthews. But I got to give you credit for that. But I got to let you go in a minute. But I got to tell you real quickly, Mr. Regal, that you are the reason why I got into professional wrestling 13 years ago. I wasn't around for the Attitude Era. I got into it a lot later than most people. But I started watching at the time that you were the king of the ring, doing the Raw GM stuff. I turned on to Raw one day. You were having a match with Randy Orton, and I have literally been hooked ever since. And because of being a wrestling fan over the last 13 years, I've made a career out of it. I get to talk to you here today, and I get to go to WrestleMania this weekend, all because of you, sir. So I got to thank you for that. I really appreciate everything you've done over the last 13 years for me personally.
Thank you for watching. I just did my little bit of it. I'm just a big player in a big world, and it was a pleasure to do, and I'm glad that it got you involved in it. So
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, Mr. Regal. I tell people all the time when they ask me, who's your favorite? People always say John Cena, Triple H, this guy, that guy. I say William Regal. People never believe me, but I'm like, no, it's Mr. Sir King Regal. You know what I mean? Especially with that King of the Ring stuff, which was some of the greatest stuff, I think, of your entire career, in my opinion.
Oh, thank you.
Absolutely. But we'll wind it down here, Mr. Regal. Like I said, you're a busy man. NXT TakeOver coming up this week. Stand and Deliver. It's going to be just an amazing show. Yeah, thanks so much for the time, sir. I very much appreciate it.
Thank you very much indeed. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.